Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of the I'll Try That podcast. We have live from New York City, it's Elizabeth Hartman-Dow.
Hartman-Dow.
Sorry, I know, but this is my terrible accent and how I would pronounce it, and I've been getting it wrong all my life, and it feels wrong to try and change it now, Liz.
That's
It's
true.
just too...
you refer to the Dow Jones? Dow chemical?
I do. Sort of the... Dow. Doe deer, a female deer, it all works.
Spray a drop of golden sun.
Spelled differently, I know, but But I've been... anyway, we are very, very pleased to have Liz on the episode. We were feeling like our US craft beer credentials were kind of out of sync. And so we have brought Liz in, who is sat, and she is our voice of the US craft beer market. We'll go into Liz's credentials about why she is in a moment. But Drabs, I think you've got a bit of a hot topic for us, haven't you?
Yes. So you guys know I'm a big fan of a novelty beer. Stuff that doesn't come around every time. Like I forced you all to drink the Goose Island Bourbon Stout. That was, what was that? Some 29%, and I paid an upset. What I thought was a large amount of money for. I think it was like £39 for one bottle of beer.
I'm sure they would contest you calling it a novelty beer.
Well, I also 100% regret buying it because it was awful. Which is the worst part about it. But as we said, this is our American episode this week, and so I thought I'd find something to do with an American beer. And have we all heard of Samuel Adams?
No, who?
Always
Sorry?
a good decision.
It's come up.
Always a good decision. Is that their slogan, or is that just
Used to be.
used to be?
Yeah.
It's pretty... Yeah.
Okay, I like that. Always a good decision, I suppose.
Also, you might remember them as they were the saviours of the craft beer world when the hop drought happened back in, I think it was 2007,
yeah,
2008,
I remember
something
this
like
story.
that. And we've talked about them before, about how fantastic Sam Adams were when they just basically opened up their hop vaults and just said, please, have as many hops as you need, just keep doing what you're doing, basically.
Oh,
So,
I like that.
big
Yeah.
fans of Sam
Nice.
Adams. As a big brewer goes, we're a big fan of them,
That's all right.
for sure.
Well, they've delightfully brought out a limited edition beer, which I believe, Joe, you said they bring out every year or at a certain point in the year.
It seems like it. I mean, this is the first time I've ever heard about it. It's the first one that's made a bit of a splash on the headlines and on the old Instagram and I think TikTok actually is where I saw this one.
So they've brought out a 28% ABV beer called Adams Utopia Craft Beer, and they describe it as an extremely rare and a highly alcoholic barrel-aged beer that they only ever make every 2 years. But good luck finding a bottle.
Interesting.
So can anybody guess? We'll start with how much this beer costs.
I can cheat and tell you the answer because I know it already.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to ruin the fun.
Yeah, I was going to say,
right.
did
It's
you?
fine. How much?
So we'll get rid of the illusion. We know how much it's cost.
Seen behind the curtain.
I was just trying to create some suspense, but you've ruined it. It's fine. We'll move on.
I'm sorry.
No.
We can
Tell
edit
us
it
how much
out.
does it cost? Go on.
Well, $200.
No, I don't believe it.
I am shocked.
If anyone can do the exchange rate, how much is that in pounds now?
I think it's two.
Well, it's probably about £200
about
to be fair.
£200.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah. So £200 for one.
Thank you, Brexit.
So that's £200 for one bottle of beer.
Nice.
Outrageous.
Why so special then? That's the question on everyone's lips, right?
Why
I
so
hear-
special?
Well,
Well, I was going to say it comes in a limited edition bottle.
Ooh.
To be fair, the bottle looks snazzy to say the least. Like, is it like a
I'm not sure what it looks like. It looks like a big... Yeah, it looks like a hopper. It looks like a beer coaster, like a metal beer coaster with a big spout at the top. I'm not sure, like a one of those old-fashioned paperweights that you might have put down
or like
on
a
your
stamp.
papers on your desk.
Kind of like if you've seen Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, it's like one of the, they're looking for the cup. It's like the one they pass over.
Yeah.
When they end up getting the right one. It could like really fit in that sort of selection.
I think
it's copper, right?
Yeah. Well, I think what I really like about it is they have a picture, I believe, of Samuel Adams that you can slide doors back on the bottle, which I think.
So I think it's meant to look like a miniature version of a vat.
Yeah, like a.
I think you're right, Liz. I think you're absolutely right.
I wanted to say kettle,
because
but
those little windows into which Drabs is talking about, you peer open. They look like those big shutters where maybe they'd pour ingredients in, right?
Yeah, we've definitely walked past one of those, but about 250 times the size.
Oh, was that the ones? Oh, haven't we got a picture of us three inside one of them from the Heineken factory?
I think that's right.
We
actually,
do.
yeah.
The Heineken experience, I'll have you know, Travis.
Sorry, yeah, the Heineken experience.
But yeah, absolutely, and it's interesting, this thing. I mean, I did watch someone review this beer, and they ended up beer bonging it, and 28% is not to be beer bonged lightly. That is a high ABV beer.
I think he came to regret that, didn't he?
But yeah, I mean, they're very proud of it. Sam Adams are very proud of this beer.
But you're not going to be able to buy it in a bar. Which...
No, it seems like, well, they've said that they've basically made 13,000 of these, and they've only made them available in the US, which is fair, it's their prerogative. I just think 13,000, from what you were saying, they've been kind of claiming you're not going to be able to get this beer, but 13,000 is quite a lot of bottles, actually. Mm-hmm. For $200 a pop, that's quite a lot of money that they're bringing in with this. Well done. There you go.
Hides his calculator. Oh no, hang on, I put that in the wrong place. And yeah, I thought that 13,000 doesn't seem, it's pretty limited, but not that limited. But isn't it also, it's the batch size, but also the fact that 23-year old aged barrel oaking. Yeah, you're looking at me surprised, but I'm telling you. And it's a triple bock, right? Come on, you guys knew this.
We haven't done a bock yet, have we? Got to do a bock.
I'm just reading something quite interesting at the end of the article, is that they can't legally sell it in 15 states because of the high alcohol content in it.
Fabulous. Doesn't surprise me in the slightest, given the crazy state-by-state laws when it comes to alcohol. Isn't that right, Liz?
Yeah, it is completely nonsensical.
So,
I mean, you can literally go from one place, go in a dry county, go down the road, and you can't buy beer, and and then you go across the street, and then you can buy beer again in some places, right? Some really weird alcohol laws, but it all makes sense from back in the day when prohibition was king.
But also that high percentage also, like I think I saw that same review as you, Joe, with the guy who beer bonged it at the end, which again, bold move, I'd say, but I'm guessing it's probably not that dissimilar to the Goose Island that we tried with you, Joe, but I'm getting an impression that this thing is going to be like treacle, trying to drink down of quite a real thick, heavy, full-on, very much special occasion beer, right? If that's not stating the obvious.
Well, was it over?
Well, for $200, that's got to be a very special occasion, right? For most people.
I think I might have actually tried this once a few years ago when I was living in DC. I'm just having this flashback to coming to a bar and someone, a bunch of us were there and someone had just, I don't know, had some success at work or whatever, and he was like, I'm going to get a $200 bottle of beer. Or it was something like something absurd like that, and he let me have a sip of it, and yes, it was treacle-like, or as we would refer to it, molasses.
Yeah. Did they, when they got it and they sort of walked over from the bar, was there like a lot of dry ice? The lights went down. There's someone playing the like a little drum roll for it to come out.
Oh, they had a sparkler
there was a little bit
going
of
off as well
around it, and basically, the guy walking it over kind of had his elbows out because he's like, no one spilled this beer.
Well, I was going to say, if you're spending $200 on a bottle of beer, we were in the bar, but you weren't there for this adventure. But when me and Joe did VIP in the Folly Doos, they were sending bottles of champagne down with sparklers down a zip wire sort of thing, and that's sort of the level that I'm expecting if I'm spending £200 on some beer.
I think you want a bit of pageantry with your beer, your $200 bottle of thing. But Liz, so were you guys drinking how much were you consuming? Do you think from this beer? Was it like you having a full glass, or was it like a small serving?
Tiny little snifter. Yeah, it was definitely served in a snifter.
Okay. like a 1 ounce like situation, kind of sipping on it. Okay,
basically
so almost
stop.
treating it like a nice whiskey or something, right? Yeah, okay.
It
Pinky
definitely feels like you
fingers
have to
out
stick your
as
pinky-
far as they would go.
I was just about to say that. Pinky fingers out if you're swinging this.
Real pursed lips. Like,
Yeah.
not even getting to your tongue. You're just like, oh, that's nice.
And I feel like once you've consumed it, you're going to have to go straight online and write a whole blog about it as well. Exactly what you tasted, how it went.
Slight side note that on that.
Well, that's good.
Slight side note, sorry, on that as well. Yes, Drabbers, I noticed you wanted to bring it up again, and thank you for reminding me that I wasn't there when you had a very nice time.
Every year it comes every year in my memories it comes up, and I will send it back to you.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Fabulous. Well, I think we can slide on from that one, and I think Liz has already given us a bit of an insight into Liz's vast knowledge and kind of gathering of information about the US craft beer scene, given she's already had this $200 bottle of beer before we even knew it existed. So well done. But Liz, we invited you on. Obviously, you are a very knowledgeable person about craft beer. Can you explain or kind of share with some of the listeners, what kind of what kind of gives you the kind of the credentials? And I'm doing this with a wry smile because it's just fabulous. You've already told us off air what you've done before this episode, which makes the three of us look like we just turn up and just kind of Google stuff, which is not too far from the truth, to be honest.
That's 100% what I do.
We also wear hats.
Yeah.
Some of you wear hats.
Sorry.
Yeah.
At least 2/3.
Says the guy who doesn't have a hat on.
I don't have one within reach.
I'll share that. Probably my credentials go back even farther than you think, Joe. I don't know that you know that I wrote my senior paper as a history major about beer, the beer industry and alehouses, and the development of the English national identity in the 18th century. So that was a really fun paper to write.
Incredible.
It was just a mic drop moment.
That's incredible. Yeah. It's brilliant because I know you've told me this once before over a beer, which is fab, and I remember because every so often, like if someone's going to fact check us, which we need fact checkers in this. It's Liz, and it's fabulous to get an Instagram message from Liz saying, "Actually, I think you'll find that blah blah blah, this thing blah blah blah," and it's like, yes, that's fantastic, and we always make a point of bringing it up. So that's brilliant. So it goes back, a long time. Your love for beer and the understanding of the brewery world. But I gave you the challenge coming onto this because obviously, diving into what you know about the American and just general brewery world. Obviously, we could do multiple episodes on that. But I was really keen to find out what's happening in the States right now. What is the kind of the consumer mindset? What's happening with the brewery world? Kind of get a bit of a sense check as I kind of set this up with. So, what have you what have you found for us?
Yeah, for sure. So, as further credentials, I live above a craft beer bar, and it is essentially my living room. I am existing in a Cheers episode constantly, so I have access to a lot of people and professionals in the industry, and I am, a tippler myself. So I have one friend who works in sales marketing at a Brooklyn-based brewery, 6 Point Brewery, and he was able to share some really great insights in addition to my own personal observations. So I would say, Joe, when you were here, the craft beer industry was going very strong, but it was still what it had always been, just bigger, which is a ton of really ridiculous science experiment type IPAs, and maybe some sours, maybe some saisons, but very big, splashy, not a lot of precision. If there was precision, it was on the art on the cans, and that was also a big part of it. So the things that have changed, especially as we are settling into a post lockdown world, is the people who were drinking the heavy IPAs, they still are, but they generally are drinking them at home. So they're not drinking them on premise so much anymore. And the, the 32 to 45-year-old subset, they're still spending the same amount of money, and so the breweries are still making the same amount of bottles, but people are getting them at bottle shops, grocery stores, etc. They're not drinking them at bars so much. what people are drinking at bars, or like that same age set, what they're drinking at bars is more high quality, low ABV pilsners and lagers.
Interesting.
Yes. Whereas the younger set, so like the 21, 22 to like 31, they are drinking sours. And the reasoning for that seems to be that, it's very tied into the whole White Claw phenomenon, where people want to sort of feel like they're drinking a cocktail without drinking a cocktail because they don't want to taste the alcohol. Yeah.
So it's high flavored. It's something that's gonna it'll make you feel, like you said, it's gonna be an interesting flavor, but you're not gonna feel like, oh, this is like, you can have a couple of these basically and feel like you're just having a good time.
Yeah, and it's the good time part of it as well, because previously a lot of the craft beer makers were targeting the beer nerds, and so there was a lot of information included on the bottles or the cans or anything like that. It'd be like, okay, this is a Citra hop, and it's mixed with a Simcoe hop, and here are the slight balances that you might be able to detect. And now they're shifting more towards the masses, who they just want to read a description that is going to tell them what kind of experience they're going to have when they drink this. Is this going to be like breakfast in a can, or are you gonna are you having a bad day and this is gonna make it better, kind of a thing?
Honestly, that's ringing so much truth from what Witchwood Brewery did their redesign, and they went so far just to stop calling their drinks by specific names, and they just called it a golden beer, a brown beer. They just made it really straightforward. This is what you're having. Like, it just simplified the whole thing. It's we there's kind of information overload that we can kind of tap into, and I think people are out there just wanting okay, I've kind of information overload. Let me just have a nice time. Let me drink something that's tasty. I know it's going to be good because it's from X brewery, or you're giving it to me at X tap room, and I trust you guys. And that makes a lot of sense.
Even as someone who kind of feels like they're on pretty good, well, at least nodding terms with pretty much every beer you run into, I still pick up a can of DDH and I go, what? That's what I do know now. But I'm just for again, the beer nerds are going to be like a smaller subset of the whole, right? There's going to be. It's not right to call them normal people, but there's normal people out there, right?
Or normies.
Yeah, which I don't count myself as a card-carrying member of the normal people.
Oh no, I can 100%. I was in a craft beer pub a couple of days ago, and it is through and through an interesting group of people. But that could just be Weymouth as well. But yeah, it was.
That's your neck of the woods, mate.
Yeah, but I love going back to something you also said as well. I mean, we've talked about it before. Lager is back. Don't forget, guys. Don't sleep on lager. It's back.
I was thinking about this, and actually brings me on to. So I feel like I was being a bit. No, we're not meant to swear. Basic bitch on American beers that I got hold of. Can you see? I've got the Brooklyn Pills now.
Yeah, you got the Brooklyn.
Because we've only been in the fairly recently seen this over here in the UK. I think it's a nice little moment of nostalgia for me. I think the first episode I did, because I was a late joiner, was we did Brooklyn Lager. And now they're having a go at the Pilsner, which is, the European style, but again done by an American brewery. And that just sort of sparked in my mind, Liz, when you said that actually that group from sort of 32 onwards, when they're going out into to a bar, are going for the premium high-end lagers and pilsners. Well, oh, Pilsner, I've got one.
And it makes a lot of sense because we've covered quite a lot of new entrants into the international market they'll be in the States as well, like the likes of the kind of the new Italian premium lagers, the Spanish premium lagers. There are different international lagers making their way around now.
So another person that I spoke with is a very deep beer nerd, and he was very excited to speak with me and share his thoughts to be shared with others. And I asked him a couple of things. One of the things I asked him was what's the future? Like, what's next? And, he got all excited, and he was like, oh, okay, so you might have noticed that there's been a big trend in Western and Central European styles and he thinks that what's coming next is a heavy emphasis on Eastern European. So the traditions that go back like 1,000 years, and really perfecting that very like Czech, like Romanian, like that kind of a thing. Because like you were saying, the Italian and the Spanish, like okay, we have that, we're liking that, but he thinks that that's going to be where it's going to go next. Which just makes me think like, oh, okay, so we went, the pendulum swings always, and we were at the forefront of just trying everything, new science, these like cold IPAs that are a thing now, and now it's going to go back and be like, okay, so what did we used to do thousands of years ago? Let's try that again. And so, very interested to see how that pans out.
Absolutely. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, just talking about the Eastern European side, I mean, we know of some, I mean, obviously Czech, it's their repertoire of amazing beers. It goes back centuries, but the fact that there are new breweries in the Czech Republic who are coming out with some fantastic takes on some of the traditional styles. And I think that every country has had breweries trying to do different takes on their traditional styles, but it's when it gets like outside of a country as well, and when it becomes popular in other parts. And I think that's exactly what your friend was tapping into. I think that's like when you see it everywhere, we're talking about beers that, transcend just like a small group of people to the masses, and I think that's phenomenal that, these breweries are picking this up, and consumers are getting switched on by this as well. And they're going, I want to try these.
Well, and I think it's important that people are clearly eager for it, because one of the things I was asking is like, what is the one thing you wish everyone knew about craft beer in general, and also right now? And something I was kind of shocked at how universally, around this went, is they want everyone to know that it is hard to make a good lager and a good Pilsner. You mess up, you throw in some hops, and like you're fine. It's an IPA, and try again.
It's a limited batch.
Yeah. So the fact that there is an appetite and an audience for this product that will take more time and precision and science and effort to make and then market, that had to happen hand in hand.
So I was thinking, we in the UK we had for a long period of time that there wasn't any. There was lager, but it was all very similar and all very samey. And only recently, in the past 5 or so years, lager, as we know, it's coming back. It hasn't really gone anywhere, but it's started to get more crafted and start becoming a bit more exciting coming out there. Is there anything like that in America that's kind of pushing through and coming in that's going to be, that you think maybe England might start lashing onto? Because we have a few American breweries and their craft stuff coming over here, and it's getting more and more popular. Do you think there's something coming our way that we should be looking out for?
I don't know if you guys have a ton of them, but Kolsch's are very popular. So the bar that I live above has 24 taps that are constantly rotating, and there's generally always nowadays at least 2 Pilsners, at least 1 Kolsch, like 3 or 4 different lagers, like a Helles lager. We've got Mexican lagers, and so the fact that I can taste the difference between those, and I'm going to be in a mood for this kind of lager right now, but not that one until the next day when, that would actually weirdly satisfy me slightly better, even though they're both lagers, but I at least can appreciate the difference and the nuance.
It's funny that actually I was thinking something similar, and I think Joe and I spoke about it in a recent episode as also. It's particularly for a UK bar these days, I think this is kind of what you're talking about, Rich, is that it used to be really, really standard to go into a bar and on the taps there are 4 options. Whereas actually it is so much more widespread now that you'd see 6 would seem like not very many. And actually you'd have thought particularly, I think the Kolsch thing, definitely, when we've in so many bars these days, because you've got that many, there's definitely space for one to sort of give them a try. But I don't know, I guess maybe for a lot of bars in the UK, it's kind of someone just making that first, taking a little risk on it. And you'd have thought there's breweries that have got the sort of distribution network to take that risk, but no one seems to have done it yet. So I would have thought that would be sort of wide open.
Yeah, I think another thing that I've noticed, and not even just in New York, when places have, in the States, they have a bunch of different taps, they're not all beer. So there's generally at least one cider because they're aware of, honestly, it's because the gluten-free movement, like they want to make sure that they have something for those who literally can't have beer. But there is also increasingly a non-alcoholic option. Sometimes it's...
Sorry.
Yeah.
Keep going, guys.
Sometimes it's root beer. But
Yes, love, I'm here.
my bar actually has a full-on athletic brewing company non-alcoholic beer on tap.
Nice, because to be honest, it's the non-alcoholic that, particularly on tap, doesn't seem to have broken through. Cider, particularly in my part of the country, is there's always there's always an option, but no, non-alcoholic beer on tap also hasn't quite happened yet. Actually, most are pretty good with having a bottled version, but on tap hasn't quite come through yet. I think it's probably the same.
That's brand new. I'm
Yeah.
thrilled about it. So.
Well, so I believe, I brought up in one of the hot topics we spoke about was the non-alcoholic bar that's supposedly opening in my hometown at the moment, and that's been pushed forwards, and that's actually been okayed, and they've now got a venue and everything like that. And so they are, and the thing was they are going to have, the article said 7 non-alcoholic beers on tap, which I think is a big step forward in the non-alcoholic movement, when I was quite disparaging because it sounded like it was going to be a late night cafe. But yeah.
Just serving everything else. That's decent though, that actually that's going to be out there. And actually, it's funny, it just put me in mind of another conversation recently with someone saying, for when someone actually focuses on doing non-alcoholic beer, that's when you get the better results, because a lot of people still are hearing about non-alcoholic beer, they kind of roll their eyes and go, it's kind of like the normal stuff but not as good. I keep hearing people say that actually, the non-alcoholic versions of beers that they've had before, they're still not that keen on, but if someone actually goes after non-alcoholic beer and does it, the results can be really positive.
Yeah, I would generally agree with that. Actually, Brooklyn Brewery does a really good non-alcoholic IPA. And again, IPA, it's easy to just throw some hops in something.
Yeah.
And it
Didn't
tastes
work.
fine.
Never mind.
Carbonated hop water. Delicious.
Yeah, no notes. I love it.
So do you know what is the up and coming non-alcoholic brewery in America at the moment? Because I'm not sure. We've got a few in England coming through that are getting bigger and bigger. But what's kind of blowing up in America in that scene?
Definitely Athletic.
Athletic.
That's the big one. They have a full range, at any time. So in my bar, they started with just one type. It was just the lager, and then they now have. Then they introduced an IPA and a hazy IPA, and they had those 3 for quite a long time. And now they have those 3, and then they also have a wit, a cerveza, so like a Mexican lager,
Okay.
a copper, and a goza. And sometimes they have a sour. So I actually have like a bunch of the sours just living. Someone brought them over,
nice.
and they just live in my fridge now. It's winter. Like, what am I doing? Just like slinging back non-alcoholic sour beers in the winter. No. But maybe come summer, take them to the park.
Oh, well, you know, actually, the other week I'm not having any alcohol midweek. I'm not doing any of that. And then we had a couple of leftovers from was it Mash Gang that we tried the other week, Rich, and I went, I'm convincing myself I'm not having any alcohol this week, but there you go, I've got a non-alcoholic beer, and that tided me over. It was like, I'm having a little treat here. So
the trick with non-alcoholic beer is you got to start with non-alcoholic beer. It can't be drinking a good tasty beer and then switch to a non-alcoholic beer. Yeah, then that's just gonna you can't. It's gonna give you that expectations of that nice beer first, isn't it? That tasty beer, rather.
Yeah.
nice isn't the word I should be using. But that's interesting about Athletic though. So is that I've got to confess, not brewery I'm familiar with. Is the name also a bit of a clue in there? Because we tried. Rich, you might have to remind me on the Erdinger, who there's a couple of. And I think there was another one, wasn't it? Which was the the grapefruit Radler, which was also this is for the drink for people who've gone for a big old cycle ride. and then they want to have something with a little alcohol in it afterwards. But again, it was the Erdinger, I think, who'd been styling their non-alcoholic beer as being a sports drink. So I'm guessing athletic, maybe along those lines.
Yeah, it was meant to be an after sports drink. Once she finished playing football, have an Erdinger, which was confusing.
That's right. Sorry, I beg your pardon. It was the actual alcoholic one. So this is a sports drink. But I'm guessing that's kind of the thing that Athletic are going for. This is post-sport. Go and have a drink with your friends. Here are some really nice options that don't necessarily include alcohol.
Athletic, and is it designed for people who maybe do more sport on a day-to-day basis, and then they go, right, you can have an Athletic afterwards and still feel good?
Yeah, there's have you guys talked about Michelob Ultra before?
Yes, we have talked about,
Yeah, so, their whole campaign was, this is the beer for people who do intense exercise and athletic endeavors and then want to have a beer because, when you run a long race, a 10K, half marathon, they hand you a banana, a bagel, and a beer. And and that's part of the prescribed recovery. But, the alcohol isn't the necessary part in that. It's the carbs, it's the electrolytes, and it's just, it makes it go down easy. So it's, healthy.
I'm just to go slightly off topic, talking about what you get at the end of a run. That is a bagel, a beer and a banana that you get at the end of a 10K.
3 Bs.
Generally, it might be some combination of those three things, but it's at least one of those Bs tends to be offered.
So my dad ran the London Marathon, and it was Flora, which is butter in the UK. There's a butter company sponsored, and at the end of the marathon, he got a tub of Flora, which I felt was really counterproductive. You just run 26 miles and you get a tub of Flora. I'm not sure what you're going to do with it. Apart from kind of lube up the chafing is all I've got in my head. But,
I thought you need...
Slight sidetrack there, but...
You need the Flora at the start, surely, instead of the end.
Yeah, right. Halfway through, yeah.
Fun. But yeah. So what are you currently drinking, Liz? Is it the Athletic, or is that just there for show?
No, so this is I'm technically on the clock. So I am.
Oh, okay.
I am drinking a non-alcoholic beer. It is carbonated hop water. So I've actually gone through one already, and so I've switched. So I have these two on hand. So the company is Hoplark, and they're freaking delicious. Highly recommend. So this one is the Citra, double dry hopped with Citra hops, and then this one is really, really hoppy. That is the name of the beer, and it is double dry hopped with Simcoe and Citra hops.
DDH, I know what that is now.
There you go.
Sorry. I felt like after saying that earlier, I needed to qualify it. I love the simplicity of that name as well, by the way, because that will help out the fools like me. Really, really hoppy.
Yes.
Okay, so
those sound delicious. We've seen such an amazing explosion of great non-alcoholic beers lately as well, and I think that's like testament to what you were saying before. People looking for those kind of low or no alcoholic options, but still actually with fantastic flavour. And those two sound incredible. I'm going to have to see if they export to the UK, because I definitely want to try some of those.
Hoplark, did you say, Liz?
Hoplark, yes.
Okay. Have a look.
I feel really bad because I really wanted to get some really cool craft American beers to drink on this episode, but as the boys will know, I recently had an accident where I fell down some stairs at work, so I've not been able to really move a lot recently. So I managed to make it to Tesco today, and all I got was Shipyard in Sierra Nevada, were the only two American ones that I could find.
Hey,
but
they're classic craft.
Yeah.
That's a classic American craft. Shipyard, people say, is the kind of the birthplace of American craft, a Shipyard, and obviously Sierra Nevada exporting. I mean, I've got a Sierra Nevada. It's one of my favourite go-tos that you can find in most mass places, and it's a lovely smooth pale ale.
Testament to that was that I also saw Sierra Nevada, and I thought, you know what, I think one of the guys might get Sierra Nevada, so I'll leave Sierra Nevada alone. We play the blinder there.
There was you guys might have probably already talked about it, but the King Elizabeth barley wine.
We did not
you guys
bring
gone
that
all
up
through
yet,
that?
no.
Yeah.
So I do have this, as soon as the clock ticks to the appropriate hour, I will be cracking open a Torch and Crown, which is a great brewery. And it is a barley wine, which is a 13% alcohol beer.
That's just hard. That's just a hard drink. No one's enjoying that.
I mean, in the
No, you can.
You can. What I will say is that it does not need to be in a pint. I don't need a pint of this.
Yeah.
This is a what we call a tall boy, and I don't need a tall boy of 13% barley wine.
That's a share can, that's for sure.
It's like a bottle of Prosecco or something, where it's just like, once I open this, like, I gotta finish it, so...
Don't worry about him.
I am loving these, like, older school... I am loving these more older school kind of like styles of beer coming back with gusto. Barley wine, is just obviously been a staple for so long. Mead, we've seen more mead than we've ever seen. Table beers coming back.
Oh yeah, we've had that on draft.
There would be
I have the need
loads
for
of
mead.
it, and that was one of the big kind of trends we were expecting to see. Is not just obviously like different like beers from different areas come back, but just very traditional beers that have gone out of fashion coming back. With a gusto. So yeah, barley wine. I mean, I've never had a barley wine, and I can't wait to try one. That's just because all the barley wines before.
Because I am imagining what your face will do when you taste barley wine, because you're gonna smell it and you're gonna make a face, and then you're gonna taste it and you're gonna make a different face.
I think I've had barley wine before, but this was, many years ago, possibly when I was 16, 17, and me and our friend Tris, or I think Tris stole it from his parents, and I think we tried barley, which is not the first time Tris has stolen alcohol from his parents, and it's ended poorly. And I was 16. I was not a fan of what I tasted.
Yeah, it is.
Well, you might have had something like a gold label. This is the one I'm looking at right now, a barley wine. It's the most kind of like, I guess, kind of mass. Tom Hardy's ale. Yeah, there's no well-known named brands that are doing a barley wine here in the UK yet. So yeah, maybe that's TBC.
I'll see what I can sneak into my suitcase next time I pop over.
I'm still waiting to see.
Although
mild.
in saying that, I have just spied that BrewDog have done a American barley wine called Barn Dance.
Amazing.
So yeah, there you go.
I've got to see some more mild. That's the one. Low ABV. We've got the lows and no's making. I say making a comeback, making an impact. I think it was a big thing in maybe the 70s and 80s in the UK. We'll have a pint of mild, something dark and low percentage. Just because I want it doesn't mean it's going to happen. But when it eventually happens at some point in the next 200 years, I can say I was right.
We'll put it on your gravestone.
That's it. Yeah. Nostradamus over here.
Liz, last word of the pod of this episode. Thank you again very, very much for coming on and sharing such insight and knowledge on this. And obviously, your beer credentials are without question going forward. And we would love to have you on again in another episode and kind of impart some more of that knowledge. But any kind of last thing you want to impart with the listeners at the end of this episode?
I'm just glad that so many people also love beer and love talking about beer, because it brings so much joy. Is it like beer podcasts are proof that God exists and she wants us to be happy. So
I couldn't say it better myself. Thank you very much. I'll have to leave that on that one. Cheers, boys. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Well,
and Liz, thank you.
Thanks,
again.
Liz. Appreciate it.
Amazing.
Thanks for coming to talk to us.
And that's all we have time for from this week's episode of the I'll Try That podcast. And so from me, Joe,
Rich,
and Simo,
goodbye. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram,
Twitter,
and watch us on YouTube.
Goodbye now. Always drink responsibly, and if you or anyone else needs some help, go to drinkaware.co.uk for more information.